I'm telling you that you will suffer psychologically and spiritually if you're not actualizing your potential. And you're telling me that you're not actualizing your potential precisely because you've already been suffering psychologically and spiritually. I'm telling you that most of what we call mental health problems nowadays is a result of not engaging in your journey and not living a life towards what you're capable of. And you are telling me that you're not engaging in your journey and you're not moving towards your capacities and possibilities and potentials precisely because of your mental health struggles. And then we are in this dilemma, in this paradox. What comes first? You feeling better or you being engaged in your journey? What comes first? Inner work or external meaningful action? And I'm here to solve this for you. We are going to be talking about a layered approach to personal growth, a layer of inner work, a layer of external meaningful action, a layer of inner work, a layer of external meaningful action, a layer of self-reflection, a layer of lifestyle change, a layer of self-reflection, a layer of habit change, and so on and so forth. However, what all of you are wondering is, well, what comes first? What is the initial layer? What is the foundation layer? Well, it's not that easy. You know, the worst answer of all, it depends. I know whatever we are talking about, no matter how big or relatively small the matter is, we don't want to hear the answer, well, it depends. But it does depend because you are a unique human being with a unique context of how your life externally looks like and unique context to your inner dynamics. I will point to, let's say, the most universal answer that we can get to. I will point to something that applies to the vast majority of us. However, let's give some credit to our uniqueness. Let me give some examples. We could say, you know, let's imagine that I'm speaking to you, exactly to you, and we could say, well, you know that if you lived a life pursuing something that you are passionate about, you wouldn't be struggling psychologically, spiritually. You would feel better with yourself. You would have a better relationship with yourself if you were exploring and actualizing your potential. Emphasis on exploring and actualizing because of the fact that some of you first need to explore and see what you are actually driven towards, and some of you have had this idea for a long time what you're supposed to be pursuing, but you haven't been pursuing it because of multiple different reasons, both internal and external barriers. So we have this scenario where you are suffering because you are not pursuing, you're not exploring or actualizing your potential. Well, the mistake to make is to say it's just internal work or inner work or it's just external meaningful action. The mistake to make is to say I need to do all of this self-reflection and fix my inner dynamic and then everything will be fine. Or to say it's just lifestyle and habit changes and then my life will be great. Both are mistakes. That's why we have two opposite camps. You have the superficial productivity bros online who say, yeah, just fix your diet and, just start training and be productive and everything will be fine. Well, we have millions of people who live very productive lives and live on surface level, very well organized and orderly lives, but they're suffering immensely. I can tell you as someone who, when he was in insane shape, I can objectively say for myself, when I was in insane shape, like 0.1% of the population, realistically, by the types of workouts that I was doing, based on performance, based on the amount of muscle mass compared to the amount of body fat, I was working an extremely demanding job, being an air traffic controller. I was reading a ton, I was eating clean, I wasn't drinking. So on paper, my life was, the poster. I was the poster boy for a productive, clean, orderly life. I was struggling, I was suffering psychologically, spiritually, mentally. And I know I'm not the only one, because one of the reasons why I started writing online was to share that part of my experience, and that's how a lot of people resonated with me. When they saw this guy who is fit, who is relatively successful in life, and isn't what you expect to see when someone is struggling. Because Nowadays, or for a while now, there have been these stereotypes, types of people that struggle with mental health. Well, I didn't appear as that person. So the point being, we have one camp of productivity bros, superficial self-improvement, extremely superficial self-improvement that proposes, okay, just move towards a healthy and productive lifestyle and everything will be fine. Absolutely not true. Will healthy and productive lifestyle help? Absolutely yes. And that's why we're talking about a layered approach. However, to propose that as the totality of the solution is ridiculous and is extremely damaging, because I have daily young men, especially daily young men, reaching out and saying, man, I'm waking up early and I'm training and I'm studying, but I feel something is missing in my life. I feel like I'm not normal. Okay, so I'm very deeply involved in this issue and passionate about it because I've experienced it, and these days I'm again receiving every single day at least one message from someone conveying that type of experience where superficial self-improvement didn't make them at peace with themselves. But then we have the other side, which is all about inner work, all about reflection, and nothing about external meaningful action. So it's all about digging through your past, it's all about shadow work, or let's say misinterpretations of shadow work. It's all about Eastern philosophy or misinterpretations of different Eastern teachings and philosophies. And then those are the people that you meet in Bali, who have to throw out the term spiritual in every single sentence and who only talk about energy. But when if we are talking about, okay, what action are we going to take to actually make an impact? What are we going to do to embody the change that we have supposedly gone through? Not much is happening. Side note, no offense to anyone who is staying in Bali or living in Bali, who doesn't fit this description. And if you do fit this description, well, maybe take some offense, but I'm here, coming from a place of love, trying to provide an alternative. I'm trying to provide something that, again, from personal experience, I have felt is a way more holistic approach. Also, I have dabbled in that. I kind of narrowed it down a bit too much, to be honest. Just saying people who stay in Bali. I dabbled in that all internal work and not enough meaningful action in a very different way. I was stuck. I was stuck in my home and I was reading all day, every day, and I was reading. I was reading whatever 5+ hours per day, different philosophical thinkers, different schools of psychology, not really remembering or realizing. I would say remembering, because that is something that we can intuitively remember, or maybe most of us, from different times in our lives when we were more engaged in life. What I'm trying to say, I was not remembering or realizing that all of this reading is worth pretty much nothing if it's not followed by or accompanied by external meaningful action. Well, how do we make peace between these two? Well, we literally make peace between them and we use both approaches. And one important thing to note is, if we are leaning too far in one of these directions, we have to first embrace the value of the other approach. Because the superficial self-improvement bro, I'm saying he, maybe it's also a she, maybe it's a superficial self-improvement sister, but I haven't met many of them, and I've met a lot of superficial self-improvement bros. He or she, they will feel strong repulsion against emphasis on self-reflection, on inner work. Most of them, they will feel that is an approach of being disengaged from life. So while they are partially true, or while they are partially correct, the problem is in them feeling so strongly against it, which is basically creating a barrier between something immensely useful, and that is self-reflection, that is getting in touch with yourself. While the overly introspective, self-reflective person who is doing all the inner work but no external meaningful action and is not capable of being productive, that type of person, because they have seen how superficial a lot of these self-improvement people are, because they see the gurus from that space, most of the gurus from self-improvement space are very shallow people whose lives you don't want to live. Okay, let's just say it like it is. Let's say it like it is. Again, I have people writing to me daily, and I'm not in competition with those self-improvement gurus who are, by numbers bigger than me. I'm in no competition, but I know that people are dissatisfied with them and coming to me and saying, listen, I'm following advice from this guy, but I'm feeling empty. So the self-reflective, introspective, but not productive type is justifiably so disappointed at or not attracted to the self-improvement gurus and most of the self-improvement crowd, because it seems extremely shallow, and it seems that most of those people are not thinking much about their lives, not thinking much about where their actions are headed, what is the actual mission, what is the actual purpose. Again, often, I'm not trying to judge everyone either on this or that side, but we all know that a lot of the stereotypes for both sides are true when you meet those people, when you interact with those people. And when you are that person, again, I'm going to admit that I've been on both sides. So that's why I feel comfortable criticizing and pointing out to the flaws, because I've been on both sides. Okay. With that being said, the self-improvement crowd is feeling like it would only damage them to participate in at least partially participate in the inner work movement. The inner work self-reflective movement is feeling like it would damage them, and it would remove the depth from their life if they participated at least partially in the self-improvement game or movement. Okay, so we are here to make a bridge between those two movements. We are here to say you have to participate in both, and you have to embrace this layered approach if you want a life that is both meaningful and productive, where you are in touch with yourself, but you are creating external success, where you can show up for yourself internally and externally. Coming from someone who is working with those types of people coming from both camps to me and saying, it didn't work out. It didn't work out. Okay, a lot of people who have attained extremely high level of self-awareness, but are not really able to utilize it well. They have gotten to know themselves really well. They understand the world deeply. They can connect to other humans deeply, but they struggle to get their project off the ground. They struggle to show up for themselves on a very practical level so that they could create some sort of momentum towards their creative project. Last night I had a conversation with a wonderful person. If she is listening to this, she will know that I'm talking about her. Wonderful person who has that immense capacity for self-awareness, immense ability to convey extremely valuable information to other people, to touch other humans deeply. But what is missing is less depth. Okay? What is missing is being less introspective, utilizing a bit less or significantly less that capacity for self-analysis, and being a bit more superficial in order to get things done. Then we have the other crowd. Again, it's often men that I speak to who have attained some level of success in life, who are doing well at their job. They're getting promotion after promotion. They're progressing in their lives. They're physically fit, but they feel empty. They feel like they're not living their journey. Again, it's mostly men. I'm not saying all, but mostly men. Well, they need to take time for self-reflection. They need to engage in practices that are not productive. Because if I tell you, go and take an hour to create a poster out of imagery that is related to your values, that doesn't seem like a very productive thing to do. If I tell you to journal on a question, what is the language that my inner critic uses? For a self-improvement bro, that's not really, doesn't seem like the most productive use of his time. Okay, again, his or her time. Well, once again, I'm not here to judge. When I say self-improvement, bro, or when I'm talking about superficial self-improvement, I think the movement itself is superficial, not the people in it. Okay, so I'm describing these two people. So what is the foundational layer in layered personal growth? You saw just now that we cannot pinpoint and say, okay, here is a foundational layer for everyone. However, we could go through a scenario that looks like this. I'm not doing the things that I want to be doing. Well, maybe I need to develop a base level of ability to show up for myself in a productive manner. That's going to apply more to the introspective crowd that hasn't dabbled too much in self-improvement or is actively rejecting self-improvement. Let's say a starting point is I'm not enough engaged in the actual creative project or projects that I would want to be engaged in. Therefore, I'm suffering psychologically and spiritually. Okay, maybe I should develop a base layer of productivity. However, right away we are back to inner work. Maybe I need to spend some time reflecting on which one of the projects is actually most aligned with my values. Okay, maybe I need to reflect on which one of these can I actually pursue right now. Then we are back to self-improvement / external meaningful action. We are back to more practical questions such as, okay, do I have the capacity to organize my day and my week so that I take some time for this self-reflection around projects and I give myself a deadline when the decision has to be made and when I start one of these projects. So you see, we are back to external stuff or at least practical stuff. But then we can go back to inner work when we say, okay, but in order for me to organize my day and week and to set some deadline so that I get this off the ground, maybe I need to have at least one session with myself where I consider my commitment overall to my life, where I consider, am I willing to make a clean cut or to have a constructive dialogue with myself where I explain to myself that I have to be ready to make a commitment, to make a clean cut, because I cannot pursue 5 things at once. So you see, it's layer. So we can go infinitely and break it down into layers. This is not meant to discourage you and to say that, you will never get to the bottom of this, but actually to point to the fact that it is unique and you have to approach it, person by person, situation by situation. But as I said, I will point to what I think is maybe the most universal piece of advice that we can gather from this. The self-improvement bro, he, again, maybe is doing relatively well, able to show up for himself. Again, maybe self-improvement sister, able to show up for herself. So, still feeling empty. Then the big task is self-reflection. However, we are back to external meaningful action and considering, okay, I still need to carve out the time for my day for this self-reflection. Okay, then I'm back to inner work. Where do my values lie? Am I overvaluing, and have I been overvaluing productive work, which is preventing me from deeply focusing on self-reflection? Because I think this contemplation of values and this contemplation of who I am and what my inner critic is and what my passion could be, all of this is not really productive. I want to just do, produce, create, move. Okay, so we have to have that conversation with ourselves. Okay, can I negotiate with myself to start appreciating things that are not immediately productive? So you see, layer, we can always flip between inner work and external meaningful action. One thing that I consider to be universal is your overall state of attention, your attention hygiene, or your attention diet, however you want to look at it. Because even extremely successful people struggle to some extent with their attention. Even extremely successful people would want the state of their attention to be better than it is. And introspective people that are not engaged in self-improvement, no matter how deep they are, no matter how profound they are, often their control of their time and attention is not the best. So for all of these people, or I would say for all humans, one very simple way to get things off the ground if you feel like you're stuck is to address, or at least to assess the state of your attention. Again, your attention diet, your attention hygiene. Because if you are like the vast majority of people, it could be better, and that slight improvement could free up space in your mind for better self-reflection, or could free up space in your mind to start creating that momentum with practical, meaningful action. It could help you reclaim the flow of your day. Now, we're not talking about the flow state. Flow state is something more special, limited in time. We're talking about flow of the day. So because the day is flowing, because time isn't static, because nothing is static, the day is flowing. But is it flowing somewhere outside of your control, or are you in control of the flow of your day? Okay, that's one thing that I want for everyone. I want for everyone to reclaim the flow of their day. Because then on a micro level, on the level of an hour and a day, you feel like you have greater control over your life, which helps both with inner work and external meaningful action. Helps both with developing a deeper connection with yourself and creating external success. Reclaiming the flow of your day. So, once again, if you are like the vast majority of humans and you could use at least slight improvement in the state of your attention, the amount of control that you have over your attention, the ability to focus, if you could use that improvement and then you create that at least slight improvement, it frees up space and energy. Of course, it frees up attention, but with that, it frees up space and energy in your mind, in your body as well, energy in your body. It frees up time in the day, and it increases your capacity to reclaim the flow of the day. And then from there, if you're lacking productivity, you're going to find it incredibly more easy to start stacking those external wins for the overly introspective crowd and for my self-improvement folks, which once again, I feel like I sounded more judgmental towards you in this video. So I want to tell you, I've been one of you, and I love you. I love you. I just want you to feel your life more deeply. I want you to feel what is pulsing within more deeply. So it's all love. For the self-improvement folks, if you improve your attention, if you improve the state of your attention, even at least a little bit, it's going to free up that space, that energy, and it's going to free up more time in your day where going on that walk with zero productivity intentions, but just going on that walk to have a conversation with yourself, to ask yourself one question and try to answer it honestly, sit down and journal, that will feel way more engaging, and your ability to actually go within will be greater. So, friends, as I promised, there is at least one thing that we can say is universal, despite the true journey of personal growth being layered. That is reclaiming our attention, improving the state of our attention. I will drop a resource down below, one of my foundational exercises, maybe the foundational exercise for starting to assess the state of your attention. So I think it will be relevant to every single person who watches this. That's it, friends. Stay strong, love life, never feel sorry for yourself, embrace the layered personal growth, the layered approach of personal growth, light that raging fire in your heart. Whether you are a self-improvement person or overly introspective person, light that fire in your heart to propel you forward into an even more meaningful journey and always go beyond. Thank you.